My name is Terry Peterson, and I'm chairman of the Chicago Transit Board. It gives me such great pleasure to welcome everyone to CTA's headquarters today as we celebrate the passage of Rebuild Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker's historic capital investment plan for this great state, which provides new funding for public transit. I'm pleased today to be joined by so many esteemed elected and appointed officials. With us today is Governor J.B. Pritzker, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, State Representative and House Majority Leader Greg Harris, Cook County Board President Tony Prettwinkle, Alderman of the 27th Ward Walter Burnett, CTA Chairman Kurt Dillard, CTA President Dorval Carter, and IDOT Secretary Omir Osman. I also saw State Treasurer, Controller, Susanna Mendoza. All right, didn't want to forget that. And of course, there are so many people inside and outside of this room who were pivotal in helping to make this legislation a reality. And I'm sure many of them will be acknowledged this afternoon. But none of this would have happened without visionary leadership. CTA is in a much better place today than it has been in decades because we have elected leaders in the governor and the mayor who understand how vitally important public transit is and why it needs to be funded at a level that allows agencies like CTA to serve our customers with world-class service. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the governor of the great state of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Terry Peterson. Thank you to all of the folks here at CTA. Thanks for hosting us today. To Mayor Lightfoot, to Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, and our Transportation Secretary Osman. I'm really excited to work alongside them, all of them, to rebuild Illinois. I know that their commitment to this city and to this state will help see this plan through. And to everyone who helped to put together the plan that will make our state better for public safety, better for business, better for jobs, elected officials, labor, activists, business leaders, thank you. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about what this infrastructure plan is and what it's going to do for the people of our state over the next 6 years. Frankly, it's all in the name, Rebuild Illinois. Over the years, state government has amassed a $30 billion backlog in maintenance needs for our roads and our transit systems. It racked up a $24 billion maintenance backlog at state facilities like the Crime Lab and at educational institutions like our universities and our community colleges. And as a result of the neglect, the people of Illinois have been paying an enormous price. From the time spent sitting in traffic to the hundreds of dollars a year in car repairs. The CTA is one of the best transit systems in the world, but it takes sustained investment. And our partners at Metra and PACE need investment too. The problems we face are the result of years of disinvestment and years of passing the buck. But this year, Democrats and Republicans came together to say enough is enough. Together, we passed the largest, most robust capital plan in state history. And we did it in the very best traditions of our democracy, a bipartisan commitment to better the lives of people all across our state. We're investing $45 billion over 6 years to repair what's broken and build what's needed, all while supporting hundreds of thousands of jobs throughout our state. We're reshaping our state for the future. We're rebuilding Illinois. The vast majority of the Rebuild Illinois budget, $33 billion, is dedicated to the day-to-day needs of our families, transportation to work, to visit family members, to go to school, to see a doctor, and so much more. This plan includes over $1 billion to expand and improve our rail systems. Chicago is the world's third largest intermodal port, and keeping this city's trains running on time is key to the success of our economy. Rebuild Illinois addresses that head-on, providing $400 million in new funding for the Chicago Region Environmental and Transportation Efficiency Program, also known as CREATE, to complete the 75th Street Corridor Improvement Project. The CREATE program is the first of its kind partnership between the federal government, the state, the county, the city, and major rail companies dedicated to a more efficient rail system. And this plan delivers the funding that it deserves. We're also providing funding to complete the high-speed rail project connecting Chicago, Springfield, and St. Louis, and funding for the expansion of the Chicago to Rockford and Chicago to Quad Cities passenger rail projects. We're connecting diverse communities across our state in a way that has never been done before. Among the many local CTA rail projects that will be funded are $60 million to rebuild the Green Line's Cottage Grove Station and $80 million for the fast-growing O'Hare branch of the Blue Line. Beyond our trains, this plan includes $25 billion, let me say that again. It includes $25 billion to maintain, enhance, and upgrade the roads and bridges that the people of Illinois use every day. Taken together, our goal is to make these some of the best roads in the nation and some of the best roads that you've driven on in decades. Here in Chicago, we're taking on the Kennedy Expressway. You're seeing over $70 million for 38 bridge deck overlays and an additional $560 million for reconstruction, auxiliary lane additions, and other enhancements to improve safety, speed, and access. This plan also dedicates over $90 million to rebuild the critical intersection at Stony Island Avenue and 95th Streets, as well as...
That's Alderman Harris.
That is Alderman Harris. As well as $25 million to overhaul Congress Parkway under the old post office downtown. But Rebuild Illinois goes further than transportation. We're doing what it takes to build a great future for this state. We provide a historic level of investment in early childhood education facilities and new levels of funding for higher education institutions across the state. That means a new simulated hospital and nursing lab at Chicago State University and a new computer design research center at UIC. We're tackling years of neglected maintenance at state facilities. $120 million will fund a new Cook County Public Health Laboratory, providing faster responses to essential testing, as well as a new Illinois State Crime Lab in Joliet. We're expanding broadband internet access everywhere in the state of Illinois. There are areas even of the city of Chicago that do not have high-speed internet. We want everyone to have access to high-speed internet across our state. We're responsibly expanding gaming at the request of cities that want to make sure that they have the resources to fund pensions and vital human services. And with these investments, we're creating and supporting hundreds of thousands of new jobs in our state, including right here. This isn't just an infrastructure plan. This is a job creation plan, the likes of which our state has never seen. It's a new day in Illinois, and I'm proud to stand with so many who have worked so hard to usher in a new era of positive change for our state. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce Mayor Lightfoot. Let me start by saying that our mayor is working very hard to make sure that across the city of Chicago that people have access to good transportation assets. and she has been a good partner with us as we have thought about this Rebuild Illinois plan, and I am very pleased at our very good relationship and the good relationship that she has developed with Springfield to get things done for the people of the city of Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
So thank you, everyone, for being here. And when the governor comes to your city and announces a litany of things that are going to help improve the quality of life in all aspects of our city, the best thing you can do is say, thank you. Thank you very much. 10 years. 10 years in the making, this capital bill has the potential to be completely transformative of everything that we're doing in the city, as the governor indicated, not just in transportation, but other vital, important investments that can really make the difference in the quality of life and people all over our neighborhood. So I am grateful to the governor. I want to also say thank you to the legislative leaders who are represented today by Majority Leader Greg Harris. I also want to thank Kurt Dillard, the head of the RTA. Pace is here as well. And of course, I want to thank the CTA, Terry Peterson and Dorval Carter, not only for hosting this event, but we stand to benefit, and I know that they were hard at work in making sure that this capital bill didn't leave the city of Chicago and the CTA behind. I also want to thank organized labor who are here and represented. I know that the men and women of organized labor worked very hard over many months to make sure that the interest of organized labor were reflected not only in the projects that are going to be funded, but by making sure that we're putting working people to work in the city of Chicago and all over the state. So thank you for your hard work in this work. The city of Chicago is an economic engine because over many decades we dared to build modern marvels, things that were once unimaginable. We have a CTA system now that has over 750,000 people that are riding each weekday. And with the monies and investments that are going to come from this capital bill, I look forward to partnering with Dorval Carter and others to increase the number of people that are taking public transportation every single day. We are ready to put our residents to work. We have to not forget the infrastructure is not just an investment in the physical buildings, but also an investment in the people that call the city of Chicago home. I wanted us to rebuild a city where opportunity is available, not just to some, but literally to every resident. This legislation paves the way for equitable investments that are not going to be limited by zip code. Neighborhoods throughout our city will benefit from improvements to schools, to libraries and parks, and early childhood education. When we rebuild crumbling roads and bridges, when we reinvest in our transportation systems, when we end decades of disinvestment on the south and the west sides, we will be putting more people to work. We will connect more communities, ushering in a new wave of opportunity and prosperity. Make no mistake, our city and our state have challenges ahead. Many are inextricably linked. But we have to, and we are, confronting the common problems with a spirit of cooperation, collaboration, and commitment. And this capital bill does a very good job in making sure that we are advancing our mutual interests together. People in the city want to make sure that our neighborhoods are safe, that our neighborhood infrastructure is in working condition, and they want the good-paying jobs that come from the kind of investments that this capital bill provides. Strong communities to raise their children in are things that everyone across the city want, an infrastructure that is reliable, accessible, and equitable. Together, we'll move our city and our state forward. Again, I want to thank the governor and the lieutenant governor for their partnership, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Majority Leader Greg Harris.
So clearly, like the mayor, we're thrilled with Governor Pritzker and his leadership, with organized labor, with all the people who came together to put together this capital plan. In my district, which is the far north side of the city of Chicago, The fact that we're having it today at CTA headquarters is particularly poignant, and the fact that Metra is here. In my area, a major retailer recently located, they did a market study that showed over 50% of the households do not own a car in my area. So public transportation through the CTA, through Metra, through PACE is critically important for people to earn their livings, to make our neighborhoods thrive, and to cut down on climate change, greenhouse gases, and other emissions. But as the governor said, we're not only talking about transit here. There are many hundreds of millions of dollars in other investments in the capital bill that are going to benefit folks all across the state. There is investment in tech research and higher education, in physics, in chemistry, and pharmaceuticals that are going to create jobs and bring in businesses in growth industries in the new economy. There's investment in multimodal transportation to allow Illinois to not only maintain its dominance as a logistics center in the United States, but to increase our capacity and bring in more jobs throughout our state, through our ports, our rails, our airports, and our intermodal facilities. It makes a major investment in affordable housing, because no matter how walkable, no matter how much transit there is in a neighborhood, if folks cannot afford the rents to live there or to buy there, we are going to become a increasingly economically divided city. So for the first time, the state will be making a major investment in affordable housing. We're also investing several $100 million in upgrading the healthcare infrastructure for our state, so that our hospitals, our clinics, all of our healthcare institutions are delivering care in a way that reflects changing technologies. Our hospitals, many of our buildings were built in the 1940s, 50s, 60s. They need major upgrades, and for the first time, Illinois is going to become a major partner with our healthcare providers to bring the best in healthcare to all of our neighborhoods. And we do this along with addressing climate change, conservation, and sustainability. There are many portions of the capital plan that will address clean air, clean water, walkable neighborhoods, bikes, as well as transit, in order to allow us to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases that are emitted here in the state of Illinois. So for transportation, for mass transit, for livable communities, walkable communities, better higher education, better health care, this plan will help do it all. So again, thank you everyone who participated, and thank you. I forgot my last task was to introduce a person who has been a partner in passing this legislation in Springfield, in advocating for the Chicagoland community's inclusion in it, for fighting for organized labor, President of the County Board, Tony Preckwinkle.
Thank you.
Nice recovery, Representative. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. For the first time in more than a decade, because of Governor Pritzker and our General Assembly, Illinois has a plan to invest in its infrastructure. My deep thanks and congratulations to our governor, his staff, and the General Assembly for this historic achievement. I also want to acknowledge the support and assistance of labor. As was previously suggested, their assistance was crucial. I'm grateful to President Cullerton, to Leader Lightfoot, to Speaker Madigan, and Leader Harris for their good work as well. This bill will improve the lives of people in the state of Illinois and the economic prospects for Cook County and the entire state. I applaud the inclusion of long-term sustainable funding for infrastructure, which will improve, enhance, and expand Illinois' transportation system. It was something that I've advocated for a long time, and in 2016 we approved a long-range transportation plan in Cook County that reflects some of the same concerns as Rebuild Illinois. Transportation investments make commerce more efficient and businesses more profitable. A good transportation system provides a larger labor pool and improves the effectiveness of the workforce. A good transportation system can reduce costly business inventories. It can make it easier to get goods to market and raw materials to factories. It can reduce accidents and improve air quality. This capital bill will benefit all users of our transportation system and reflects critical investments in not just safety and mobility, but in the prosperity and the quality of life of residents in our communities statewide. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Alderman Burnett, head of the Transportation Committee and the City Council, and an old friend and colleague. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am thrilled to be here today to celebrate this historic moment for our city and state. After a decade without a capital plan, we are once again investing in our infrastructure. I'm grateful to the leadership of the governor and the bipartisanship of the legislators in the General Assembly to make this happen. Here in Chicago, we will benefit from the impacts of Rebuild Illinois for generations. It will rebuild roads and bridges and bring critical investments to our rail systems. It makes our institutions of higher education a priority, building up the city colleges of Chicago, the University of Illinois and Chicago State. And it prioritizes communities that have been left behind for far too long, with investments in public health and affordable housing and opportunities for entrepreneurship. This will be transformational for our city and for the entire state. Now, let me introduce to you a person who has been a state representative, now works for RTA and works for everyone in the state of Illinois, Kirk Dillard.
Thank you, Alderman Burnett. As he said, as a former legislator and a top aide to two governors, Governor Pritzker, I probably have a better realization of what an incredible accomplishment and job you and all my former colleagues in Springfield did. In January, the RTA Board adopted an Invest in Transit Regional Transit Strategic Plan. Yes, we have one of those that outlined our need for $30 billion of just repairing the system to keep it in what we call a state of good repair. The legislation that the governor signed over the last couple of days puts us clearly ahead on our goal to have those $30 billion in repairs. Very importantly, for the first time ever in state history, this bill signed by Governor Pritzker has a pay-as-you-go provision that provides nearly $250 million forever for sustained maintenance, which clearly has my friends at CTA, Metra, and PACE smiling today. It also added about $3 billion in bonding revenue over the next 5 years for repairs. So I ask all the time, what does this mean for the 1/6 of Illinois that rides the RTA system every day? Over 2 million riders. And I tell them that better funding means better rides. I know that CTA President Carter will speak in a couple of minutes, and I assure you that this funding law is going to help the CTA by eliminating slow zones and upgrading their vehicles. For Metro riders, these funds mean the agency can start to upgrade some of their stations to ADA compliance and also, very importantly, giving them new equipment. I personally ride on a car on Metra that was delivered when Dwight Eisenhower was president every day. I can't make that up, folks. And for PACE, and very importantly, the ADA paratransit riders, these funds mean we will invest in the latest technology for people with disabilities, expanding the very successful Bus on Shoulder program and funding the Harvey Transportation Center. I want to thank the governor and Leader Harris and all my former legislative colleagues who were champions in this, and the stakeholders. For my friends in organized labor, let me tell you that over the last decade, 85% of all new commercial construction in the metropolitan 6-county Chicago area took place within a half a mile of mass transit. Mayor Lightfoot, 50% of all new jobs created in the Chicago metropolitan area in the last 10 years were within a half a mile of mass transit. And I am committed with the mayor to make mass transit the economic equalizer for all of our communities in the city of Chicago. And very importantly, 76% of all new multifamily starts in metropolitan Chicago were within a 10-minute walk of a CTA or metro station. So I thank you. I ask all of you to remember that where transit goes, the economy and the community grows. And without further ado, it is my honor to turn the podium over to one of America's greatest transportation leaders, President of the CTA, Dorval Carter. Dorval.
Thank you, Kirk. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I am excited, as you can imagine, for this day to have finally arrived. And I want to thank Governor Pritzker, Mayor Lightfoot, President Preckwinkle, and the rest of the dignitaries here for joining us. I have to tell you, as a CTA historian, I do believe that this is the first time in the history of our agency that we have had a presiding governor, mayor, and county president all in this building at one time for one evening. And I think that is a appropriate statement of the historic nature of what we've accomplished here and the bipartisan nature by which we have pursued it. I can tell you, and I had the privilege and honor of serving on the transition team with the governor when he was coming into office and asked to really prepare his platform for transportation. And one of the things that I advocated for during those meetings was that we would have a sustainable, reliable funding, dedicated funding for transportation going forward. Governor, you delivered. Thank you for that. I also know that shortly after Mayor Lightfoot took office, she had conversations down in Springfield, and she was asked, what are the things that you want to see the legislature accomplish? And while I know she had a long list of things that she asked for, I do know that one of the things that she asked for was to make sure CTA is taken care of. And so I truly appreciate, Mayor, your support and advocacy for CTA and your time here as mayor of the city of Chicago. So that means the work is now on me. We have a historic level of funding that's going to allow CTA to address so many capital needs that have gone unmet over the past decade. Kirk certainly made the point about what transportation has done in terms of economic growth in the city. Imagine what it's going to do now that we have a capital program in place to improve the services that we provide to the communities that we serve every day. We are going to be rebuilding CTA. We are going to be rebuilding our stations. We are going to be renewing and rebuilding our track. We are going to be rebuilding and overhauling our rail cars and our buses. You are going to see the benefits of what you have given us appear every single day to the customers who rely on and expect good quality transportation day in and day out. CTA is committed to doing that, and more importantly, we're committed now that we have the funding to support us to make that happen sooner rather than later. We are also committed to jobs and contracts and opportunities and equity so that everyone benefits from this program regardless of your race, your ethnicity, or your economic status. This is a everyone wins bill, and I am proud to be the person who's going to help show that everyone can win going forward. I have been thrilled to have the opportunity to talk to all of you today about what it is that we're going to be doing. I would be remiss if I didn't point out one other thing that will happen that has been very near and dear to my heart, and that is something that I have waited to have the funding to do, and that is to move towards 100% accessibility of the entire system. We are committed and on the path to make the CTA the first legacy system to be 100% accessible in the United States, and that is something that we all can be very proud of going forward. So, Governor, thank you. Legislative leaders, thank you. Mayor, thank you. I'm excited, thrilled, and happy to have the opportunity to deliver this program with you going forward. And with that, I will now turn it over to the Secretary of Transportation, Omar Osman.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay. So it is my pleasure and honor to be here today. I'm Acting Secretary of Transportation Omar Osman. Because of Governor Pritzker, because of his leadership, and the foresight of the General Assembly, and their support for transportation in our state, the Illinois Department of Transportation is back in the business of building a premier transportation network that creates jobs and improves your quality of life. Our roads, bridges, transit providers, ports, rail systems, and the ability to grow bicycle and pedestrian accommodation have been neglected for far too long. Our communities have suffered as a result. For far too long, we have lacked the ability to invest in infrastructure and projects that, like the projects we are celebrating here today. I could tell you part of our plan for the Chicago region is going to be a $561 million Kennedy Expressway reconstruction. It's going to mean a $60 million Cottage Grove station reconstruction. It's going to mean a $31 million Blue Line O'Hare branch and several stations in that area. It's going to mean a $25 million for major bridge reconstruction under the old post office. It is truly a multimodal infrastructure bill. It is extremely comprehensive and detailed. At IDOT, we have been working around the clock to capture its impact on our planning and programming efforts over the coming months and years. We will, in the coming weeks, be releasing our multi-year program, which shows the full scope and nature of Rebuild Illinois. Today is just a taste of things to come. I'm truly excited that this is not only the largest capital program in the state history, but the first one that is truly multimodal. Every aspect and every mode of transportation in every part of the state of Illinois will be touched by it. As a Secretary of Transportation, and during my entire 30-year and 30 days today, 30-year and 30-day career at IDOT, I have pushed for diversity. Diversity in our department and diversity on our projects. I am thrilled, absolutely thrilled, that we have a champion in Governor Pritzker. One of my priorities with this capital program will be to redouble our effort to make us more inclusive. To make us more inclusive through our DBE program and other initiatives to best reflect the communities we serve. That means strengthening programs that provide opportunities to get young people started on a career in transportation and to make more small businesses eligible to participate in our projects. That's how you grow jobs, grow businesses, and ultimately make our project selection process more competitive. Again, thank you, Governor Pritzker, for your commitment to transportation. And I want to tell you, get used to seeing IDOT around here these few years. And please pardon our dust these few years while we rebuild Illinois. Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our Lieutenant Governor, Lieutenant Governor Stratton.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Secretary Osman, for that introduction and for your leadership. And I also want to begin by thanking Mayor Lightfoot, President Preckwinkle, members of the Illinois General Assembly who are standing here today, including legislative leaders, members of the Chicago City Council who are here today, as well as other elected officials, and the civic leaders who are standing with us this afternoon. I'd also like to acknowledge the business leaders and the men and women of labor who have worked so hard for their communities with their communities to make this moment happen. And Governor Pritzker, thank you, because I am so proud to serve alongside of you. Through your leadership and bipartisan support, we have delivered on a promise that will improve the lives of people all around our state and the lives of people in Chicago and surrounding areas. From Roseland to Austin to Rogers Park and Norwood Park, and every neighborhood in between, Rebuild Illinois will create opportunities for people in our communities and for future generations of Illinoisans. Gaming expansion and legalization of sports betting have been years in the making as well, and Illinois will now get to work on creating thousands of jobs and rebuilding communities. The jobs created will be good jobs that will lift up families all across our state. And I am also proud that the revenue generated will deliver results by investing in transportation, state facilities, education, and our environment. This is how you connect communities and create opportunities for the next generation. In the Chicagoland area, this means big investments in public transportation, which so many working families depend on day after day. And people will not only have a better commute as these projects are completed, but cities and towns all across our state will be connected like never before. As always, Governor Pritzker, thank you for lifting up the voices of the Black, Latino, and Asian caucuses to ensure that this legislation was drafted with an eye towards equity. It will ensure that a pipeline of diverse workers is created so that men and women reflecting the communities of our state are prepared for careers in construction and the building trades. In addition, there are economic incentives to ensure contractors and subcontractors will provide employment opportunities to historically underrepresented populations in the construction industry. Chicago, we are here because just like every city in our state, we believe in this city and we believe in our state. And we are investing in Illinois and doing all we can to make our state the best that it can be. Thank you, and now it's my honor to bring back to the lectern Governor Pritzker to answer questions.
Thank you. Happy to take any questions from members of the media.
Through you, Governor. Governor, we'll start today with gas tax. A lot of this is being paid for with your new gas tax. A lot of motorists not exactly thrilled about the prospect. Tell us how important that is as a key to redistributing.
Thank you. Well, it gives me an opportunity to remind everybody that for every vehicle that somebody owns, they're experiencing about $500 of needed repairs and additionally depreciation on their vehicle every single year as a result of the potholes and the bridges that are in disrepair. And we're asking people to, on a fraction of that basis, to help us invest so that they can save money. That's number one. Number two, we're creating a lot of jobs all across the state of Illinois. We're putting a lot of people to work. We're also attracting jobs from businesses that will want to be here because of the upgraded infrastructure that we'll have all across the state of Illinois and right here in the city of Chicago. And then I just want to point out that if the gas tax that had been imposed in 1990 had been indexed to inflation, if it had just kept up with inflation from 1990, it would actually be above where we're putting it today. So we've missed all of those years of investment in our infrastructure. Every dollar that is coming in from the motor fuel tax is going into a lockbox that only goes to roads and bridges and our surface transportation needs across the state, so people know that that money will be spent well.
Governor, could I ask Mayor Lightfoot a question, please? In the gas tax legislation, municipalities are empowered to add 3 cents. Do you plan to do so, and what do you have in mind on spending that money?
We don't have any present plans to do that at this point.
Why not?
Because we're looking at making sure that we build efficiencies in the way that we do our government, and we're looking at other potential revenue sources, but we're not looking at adding to the gas tax.
Mayor, have you asked the governor, have you asked the governor to, have you asked the...
And why did you allocate so much money to them?
Well, I mean, we have bridges across the state that are crumbling and falling apart, and it is the Department of Transportation that determines what the priorities will be based on life safety needs. As many of you know, our bridges and our roads have very low ratings from engineering rating firms. And it's because they literally are crumbling. Some of them are truly very dangerous for people. So that is just one of the many projects across the state that are in desperate need of rebuilding so that people can be kept safe.
Mayor, have you asked the governor to consolidate the city pension funds under the state's umbrella? And if so, what has been his reaction? And have you also asked him for authority to levy a service tax, a sales tax on services?
We have not, with the governor, spoken about specifics yet. Obviously, the governor is going to be a partner with us. He's well aware, as we all are, that the city has substantial budget issues and financial issues, particularly around our pensions, and we're going to work together cooperatively to see what we can get done. But the first step, as I've indicated many, many times, is for the city of Chicago to make sure that it gets its fiscal house in order by making sure that we're building efficiencies into the way that we spend precious taxpayer dollars. That's why, for example, we announced last week that we were getting rid of a line of credit that was costing us a lot of money that we didn't need. That's why we brought the workers' compensation program back into the executive branch and working on making sure that we net savings there. So we have a lot of additional steps that we need to take before we make any specific revenue ask. Thanks.
Governor, what help are you prepared to offer the city as they face this billion-dollar pension question?
Well, as you know, as governor of the state, I represent all the municipalities across the state, and we have pension challenges in many other cities. I just came from Rockford this morning. They, too, in their police and fire and municipal pension systems are challenged. You'd hear this if you went all across the state. We have 635 downstate pension systems that are funded roughly between 40 and 45% of what they needed to be funded. So we're looking at all of the things that are available, not just to the state pension funds, to the cities and the counties, to make sure that we're going to help people to improve their funding levels. We'll do everything we can, but as you know, I created a task force to look at consolidation of those 635 downstate pension funds. We're also looking at all of the pension challenges that are faced across the state.
Governor, back at Bob, does it potentially make sense to put all of those funds, I know in Chicago, but Rockford and other cities that are having difficulties, put them together in one and have the state pay the funds?
Well, remember that pension consolidation means a number of things, but one thing that you should pay attention to is that among the downstate pension systems, they're actually, because many of them are very small, they're actually experiencing a much lower rate of return than the benchmark would indicate they should, by 200 basis points or 2%. So if you think about how that compounds over years, if they're getting lower returns, if they would consolidate simply the investment dollars that they had, let alone other functions or liabilities, just the investment dollars, the improvement there would have a substantial impact on those pension funds. So we're looking at everything across the board. We've got a task force that'll be coming in with their ideas and making suggestions to me shortly. I think Amanda, or I'm sorry, somebody in the back row there was.
So you go first. Okay, I am interested more in this pension fund. When you say that it is beyond consolidation, what all else are you looking at when it comes to pensions? Can you give us an example or two? And can you also clarify, when you talk about consolidation, is that including Chicago with downstate, or what specifically are you looking at to address? As you noted, it's not just the city, but to address the city as well as the other.
There's no part of the conversation that's being left out. I mean, we have state pension challenges that we have to meet. We have, obviously, City of Chicago has its pension challenges, and we have those many fire and police municipal pension systems. So we're looking at all of it and everything that we can do. I've made a number of proposals, including at the state level, allowing people to opt in. This was something that was actually started before I became governor, but I expanded the program for people to choose to be bought out of their pensions at a mild discount. This is at their option. And that's something that actually saves the state quite a lot of money. And so that's another example of something that we've looked at across the board. That's, the task force is looking at everything. I don't want to, jump the gun on what their recommendations will be.
If you were to consolidate the city's pensions into the state pension fund and do it for other municipalities around the state, what would you want in return for that, sir?
Well, to be clear, the state is at just above junk status in its credit rating. So there are not liabilities that can be adopted by the state that would not drive us into junk status. So that is not something that we can do. But again, we want to help municipalities in every way we can. We're looking at all the opportunities to do that, like improving investment returns.
Mayor Lightfoot, can I ask you a question on a different subject? The consent decree, the point God report thing was supposed to start today, but the FOP has asked for a delay in that.
Yeah.
They're concerned about, still big concern is that the information collected for that is going to be used against them, police officers. Can you address that?
Thank you. Look, we've got to move forward on a consent decree. I'm concerned, and I actually just came from a meeting where I expressed my concern that I feel like it's moving at a snail's pace. I understand that the FOP has now asked for a further delay. We don't think that there's any basis for a delay. We've got to keep moving forward. The monitor issued an interim report, I think about a couple weeks ago, but there's so much work that needs to be done. We have to move forward in an expeditious way that really tackles the challenges that have been outlined in the consent decree. I'm confident that the judge will make the right decision here, but we've got to move forward. And obviously, there are things that we need to do at CPD that are outside of the consent decree, which we'll move on as well.
What about their concern? Is their concern that they feel that they don't know what you're going to do with the information that's collected?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
FOP's concern, but they feel that the information is going to be used against them.
Well, look, there's safeguards that are built into the consent decree. Look, we've got to get past the point where the FOP reflexively believes that anything related to police reform is a problem. I met with President Graham a few weeks back. I think there's some common ground that we can reach there. But I understand the concern, but I don't think that concern is actually going to bear out because there are protections in place. Obviously, we haven't abandoned the Officers' Bill of Rights. That's baked into state law. That's also part of the general order. So I think there are a lot of safeguards there. But we've got to move forward on reform and get the work done. And we can't keep delaying the process or we're never going to get to it. And the delays are going to cost us more in the long run.
Thank you, everybody.
Governor, the state was